The Tories aren't just failing to do the job, they're actively ensuring the government gets a free pass on absolutely everything. We currently have a Labour administration that needs legitimate scrutiny, but instead we have Chris Philp and the Conservative remnants engaging in a public display of delusion. So what are the stakes? Well, a government that operates without fear of challenge because the alternative is busy fighting imaginary battles. So in this video, we've got a moment where Chris Philp is about to admit he watched China steal our secrets for years and did absolutely nothing about it.
Your leader says that he shouldn't have gone at all. Isn't that a bit unrealistic? Some would say a bit juvenile.
Well, of course, you can have relations with another government without sending our Prime Minister to go and see their president. In fact, no Conservative Prime Minister went over to China in person for about 8 years. I think 2018 was the last visit. You can, of course, have dialogue and diplomacy without sending the Prime Minister in person.
Chris Philp is an absolute weapon, and I don't use that term lightly. But watching him try to land punches on the Prime Minister this morning was like watching a drunk try to pick a fight with a revolving door. So let's look at the China visit. Starmer goes over there and gets sanctions lifted on 7 parliamentarians, mostly Tories by the way, and Philp's reaction isn't, oh good, our colleagues are nice and safe. It's this.
I mean, he came back pretty much, as far as I can see, empty-handed, a couple of little things here and there, but nothing that's really going to move the needle.
Is it such a little thing that at 7, I think 7 parliamentarians have had sanctions lifted against them? Most of them are Conservatives.
Look, I'm sure those MPs, and I, as a parliamentarian, I would say, look, that's clearly a small step in the right direction.
A little thing. 7 elected British representatives were sanctioned by a hostile state, and when the PM gets that lifted, Philp waves it off because it doesn't fit with his narrative that Starmer is weak. It's pathetic. But it gets worse. Philp then tries to pivot to the super embassy near the Tower of London. He's furious about it. He claims that it's a base for espionage, and then he drops an absolute clanger of a cell phone.
But when you think about the scale of China's espionage activities against the West, and particularly against the UK, it's not changing anything there. They've got what they want, which is their super embassy just next to the Tower of London, which will serve as a base for espionage, not just in the UK, but across Europe. I saw when I was technology minister in the last government how the Chinese are systematically seeking to steal sensitive technology, things like, semiconductor IP, quantum computing, graphene and so on, by either infiltrating companies and universities or just directly stealing it using classic espionage tactics. They're doing that on an industrial scale, and yet the government, the Labour government, have granted them this super embassy. They're not even putting China in the enhanced tier of this thing called the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, where anyone working for the Chinese state has to register.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the official opposition. And did he just admit that he saw it? He was the technology minister. He was in government for 14 years. If China was stealing semiconductor IPs and graphene on an industrial scale while you were sitting at the desk, that isn't an attack on Starmer. That's a confession of your own staggering incompetence. You didn't stop it then, but you expect us to believe you're the guy to stop it now. Come on, give over. Then we get to the defections. Jenrick and Braverman have jumped ship to reform. Philp sounds exactly like a bitter ex-boyfriend trying to convince everyone he did the dumping.
Well, you said yes another. Let's keep it into perspective. It's 4 out of 121. And at least,
but there are 4 important names.
Well, and at least one of them, Robert Jenrick, did so out of frustrated personal ambition because he was upset that he didn't become leader. So look, I mean, so putting him to one side because it's a bit different. Look, obviously,
blimey, he's already history in your mind, isn't he?
I mean, well, he made the move.
You guys do drop people quickly.
He made the move for obviously personal reasons. I think we both know about, and your viewers will as well. But look, generally speaking, of course, we prefer to keep people on board. But if they have some disagreement, or in Robert's case, frustrated personal ambition, probably better they just acknowledge that and move on, and we carry on united and confident about the future.
Frustrated ambition? Or maybe, Chris, they looked at the polling numbers you're desperately pretending that don't exist, and Trevor Phillips puts out the Tories are 15 points behind Reform in over 200 polls. 200. And Philp's response is?
Well, I wouldn't be so sure about the polls, Trevor. First of all, we can see the polls between Reform and the Conservatives now getting a little bit closer. Recent polling on who would make the best Prime Minister had Kemi beating, in a head-to-head, beating Nigel Farage as best Prime Minister and beating Keir Starmer as best Prime Minister. And when it comes to a general election, that is a very relevant question. When it comes to general election as well, you're choosing a government. That is different to local council by-elections or opinion polls today. And I think we'll get a rather different result at the next general election to what today's opinion polls may suggest.
Burying Robert Jenrick, what I heard in that answer was something we haven't heard from Conservatives for a while, which is, did I hear you say that you think you're going to win the next election?
I think we are fighting to win the next election. I think we can win the next election, and that is what Kemi and I are working every day to do.
The 200 and something polls over the last nearly a year that have put you somewhere between 10 and 15 points adrift of reform are just nonsense.
Well, the election is 3 years away. Those polls are slightly closing. I don't want to overstate it, but the polls are getting a bit closer. And when it comes to the underlying indicators, like who's going to make the best Prime Minister, Kemi is ahead of Nigel Farage and ahead of Keir Starmer. So, look, it's 3 years away, a lot of water to pass under the bridge, and I haven't got a crystal ball. But I tell you this, I am working to make sure we win, and Kemi and I and Mel Stride and others will move heaven and earth to make sure we do, because it's in our country's interest.
See, this is just the problem. We don't have opposition. We have a support group for delusional careerists. And while the government is making actual moves, whether you like them or not, we deserve an effective opposition. And this is the problem right here. We don't have that. We have a broken car alarm. It goes off for absolutely everything, and so we listen to nothing. I bet if Starmer cured cancer tomorrow, Philp would be on LBC complaining about the impact of the funeral industry. It's pathetic. They're standing in a smoking crater of their own 14-year record, screaming that the cleanup crew is holding the broom the wrong way round. It isn't just embarrassing, it's actually quite dangerous as well, because when the government does screw up, nobody's going to listen to a single word Chris Philp has to say.